Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another evening edition of Southbridge Street Live. It is my great honor to introduce my guest. This is Dr. Phylis Canion of Organic Emporium. And tonight we're going to be talking about holistic living, the business that you own, the store Organic Emporium, and then we're also going to be talking about what CBD oil is, because we're seeing this everywhere now in Victoria. But I just wanted to welcome you and thank you so much for taking time tonight.
Well, thank you for having me, and I have to say that it's great that we can share what we have learned in the organic field over all the years. I lived overseas for 20 years and had a great learning experience at looking at diets and lifestyles among people outside of our culture. Right. And for me, it was always an interest, because every time I came back to the States, it seemed like more people were sicker with newer and different diseases that we never saw overseas.
Where did you live overseas?
We were in South America for 8 years, and we got transferred to West Africa. We lived in Gabon for 5, and then we were transferred to Asia. And we lived about an hour out of Hong Kong in communist China.
Wow, so you've actually really been inundated with that culture over years, not just visiting, but to be immersed in their culture, which means that you were immersed in their food.
Yep.
Food as first medicine.
Exactly.
Herbs, remedies, and things like that. So,
and it's amazing when you look at their cultures and their longevity as opposed to ours. In the United States, in 1950, we were ranked about 10th for longevity, and now we've dropped into the 48 to 50 category.
That's astonishing.
And that's amazing to me, having traveled on every continent except Antarctica, that is that many foreign countries that have better longevity than we do in this country.
Now, I know that there's probably no easy answer to that, but I'd love to know what you attribute.
Well, after studying nutrition and food as long as I have, I can totally associate it to the food that we consume in this country.
Can we talk about that?
We are more into factory food instead of farm food. And in most of the countries that we have traveled, they don't do so much factory food.
Right.
Most of it is produced in the United States, and more countries have now banned our food from traveling into those countries because of the ingredients. In the UK, as an example, they refuse to carry about 40 to 50% of our food that we carry here because it has high fructose syrup in it and other ingredients that are not accepted in foreign countries.
I really want to talk about you, because I'm as a biographer, I have lots of questions for you as a person, but I want to talk about the food label, right? Because you said this high fructose corn syrup.
Right.
What are some of our killers?
Well, that's probably one of the bigger ones. In the beginning, it became public. Look at the label, and if it says sugar, you don't want to get it, especially if that was the first ingredient. Then the industry started to change it. Now we have 32 different words for sugar. High fructose corn syrup was one of the first ones that came out. And people would look at the label and say, oh my gosh, Dr. Canion, but I ate it, but it doesn't have sugar in it. And it's like, but it has an alternative called high fructose corn syrup. We know now that the majority of our crops of corn in the United States are genetically modified. So we are ingesting something that our system will not let us completely digest. And that is tricking the body. And that is when I think when we really introduced that heavily is when we started to see different disorders creep up in the United States. Because at my age, and I'm almost 70, so I think back as a kid, I never heard of anybody that had lupus or fibromyalgia or kids that were autistic or ADD. We just didn't have that. So we look at it and say, well, why has that become so prevalent now? And the only thing I can associate it with to me, what